Many folks have been noticing that Hollywood is struggling of late, to say the least, whether it's coming down to the writing or directing, the acting, pretty much everything, the box office, and whether people are going to show up or not, streaming, fighting with everybody, which brings us to everything that I want to talk about today, which is Hollywood's sequelitis. Just being that Hollywood seems to think that sequels are safe and it's all they really want to make. And sometimes they are safe, sometimes they aren't. Like currently, the box office is proving that they can be safe with Inside Out 2. The news is that we are getting a sequel to the 2021 film Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk. It also looks like we have two Shrek sequels coming down the pipe. And the last little bit of news is a bit interesting as well, which is that Scarlett Johansson has attached herself to a new franchise. So we're going to dig into all these things coming up. Let's just dig into it. Before we dig into the news, I wanted to talk about Criticlist. That's my website, criticlist.com. Make sure to go check that out. We are in Apple and Android stores as well because we are an app. It's for reviewing movies, entertainment, TV shows, and hopefully in the future, even more things. You can make lists, join groups, hang out with friends. We just want to capture that old school MySpace vibe back when social media actually kind of had a purpose versus just yelling at each other over politics. We want you to be able to talk about the things you like and the things you don't like, and maybe just help out culture a little bit and let everyone know what you really think about the things that are happening in the entertainment industry and whether or not they are things worth checking out. So, on to the first piece of news. I want to talk about Nobody 2, starring Bob Odenkirk. This is being reported by Variety. It sounds like there is a sequel coming for this. And if you did not see Nobody, that's not necessarily a huge surprise. But as far as sequels go, this is actually one I'm fairly excited about seeing. I really dug the first Nobody film. It was actually one that we reviewed back in the day on Critically Aroused, which has now become Criticless Cast, which you can check out in our feed. I really like this movie. It's very much a John Wick type of vibe, except for if it was like John Wick, but a dad who's trying to save his family. The news on this is that it is going to get a different director this time. Last time with the first Nobody film, it was actually directed by a foreign director, and I'm not even going to attempt to say this name, but it's the guy that did Hardcore Henry, and that movie was absolutely absurd, and I really dug it. And so I was excited to see that he was going to make this movie, and it turned out to be really fun. The critics weren't as high on it, but who cares? Because it was a good time. We're not too far from an official score on Criticlist. We've got some 91s, some 60s, 75s. There's nothing really, really bad. I mean, the lowest is a decent in here right now. So people seem to generally like it. It's not a hated film by any means, which explains why it's getting a sequel. Now, they do talk about the previous film and how it only made $57 million. Granted, this was probably made on a fairly slim budget, so it would make sense that maybe they'd try and go with another one and get even better returns on the second film, kind of like how it happened with John Wick. And that was a lot of the vibe that was captured with this movie. And it sounds like Timo Tahajano, maybe we're going to say that, Timo, who's going to be the new director here. He's an Indonesian director, and he did The Night Comes for Us and May the Devil Take You. Now, it sounds like he's actually part of a duo who they call themselves the Mo Brothers, and they did films together like Macabre and Killers and Headshot. So this is a solo outing for him that he's going to be working on this movie. And I'm curious to see if he can handle and match what they were able to do with this first film, because it was very action packed. The script was really solid. Everything about it it was a very brisk film. It didn't overstay its welcome, and it just did what it came to do. No frills, and just gave you some really good, fun, hammy action. And that's what most of us ask for in action films, and it captured all of that. And I think it could be really smart to get a sequel to this and bring back Bob Odenkirk and continue on with this story of his character as this, I don't want to spoil too much actually about the film if you haven't seen it, but it is an interesting concept of what they do with this character. So I'd say to check out Nobody if you haven't yet, and just expect John Wick with the dad. So I'm excited about this news. Granted, I mean, like I said, Hollywood just seems to churn out sequels. There doesn't seem to be as much creativity happening in the industry, which is why we have a day like today where it's nothing but sequels, which let's go ahead and dig into the next bit of news, which is that it sounds like we're getting a Donkey spinoff movie or Donkey Shrek movie. And I guess, sure, whatever, but I don't really understand the Shrek fandom anyways.
Yeah! Waffles! And I thought the Waffle Fairy was just a bedtime story. Sticky stacks of golden therapy deliciousness!
I've been finding out over the years that there's just like this group of folks that are rabid about Shrek, and like women that have the hots for Shrek, and just all sorts of strange things that I don't fully understand. But the world is a weird place. So, I was digging it through it in Criticalist to see what other Shrek films had been made, and there's been quite a few that I didn't even realize, as far as Shrek the Third and Forever After, and there was the first and second one obviously as well. And I mean, the first one is an excellent movie. We were sitting at a 93% right now on Criticalist. People just really love this. It's a nostalgic movie for the 90s and 2000s kids. And I mean, this came all the way back out in 2001. So this is a franchise that's been around a long time. Now, with the news here, they are saying that basically Eddie Murphy has done some press recently, and he had a conversation with Collider. And so this article right here is from comingsoon.net, but basically they're talking about the conversation that he had with them and about how actually Shrek 5 has already began production, and they are working on it and making the movie right now. So what he was saying was basically that it was a bit of a news drop that Shrek 5 is in production. And then also he was like, hey, we're going to be making another one. So from that interview, what it says is, we started doing Shrek 4 or Shrek 5 months ago, Murphy said. So he's already forgotten that they're on the fifth film here. So, and he says, I did this. I recorded the first act, and we'll be doing it this year. We'll finish it up. Shrek is coming out, and Donkey is going to have his own movie. We're going to do Donkey as well. So we're going to do Shrek and we're going to do Donkey. So that was a little bit repetitive right there, but basically, clearly, they're doing both movies. Now, when asked whether or not the movies were being made simultaneously or would be released close together, Murphy clarified that the Donkey movie would happen sometime after the fifth film. So it's not going to be at the same time. So this Donkey movie is not in production right now. And I mean, there are even other spinoffs as far as the Puss in Boots movies. There's been a bunch of those. And actually, apparently the last one was excellent. And my wife and kids loved it, and they've watched it many times. So, I mean, clearly this franchise is chugging along. People still like it. And as long as they're putting out good movies, people will show up for them. And as far as these past two, I mean, nobody's going to be the one that I'm going to return for, because I loved that first one. I've kind of, fell off the Shrek franchise. It's neat and whatever, but not really my bag. And my kids are at the age now where I can kind of avoid seeing some stuff like this. So I do when I can. And with the last bit of news, what I wanted to talk about was Scarlett Johansson. And the news here is that she has confirmed that she is going to be doing the next Jurassic World film, which is kind of wild. I mean, we have the original 3, we have the Jurassic World 3, and I actually really liked the first 2 Jurassic World movies, and then the third one was not so hot. It seemed to be the one that people were the most lukewarm on, even though it brought back the original cast and, was pulling on the nostalgia. It was just a bit of a mess and not that great, but it sounds like we're getting back to kind of not rebooting it, but just moving on with the franchise past, that Chris Pratt cast and the Jurassic World cast, and getting on to something new. So it basically just says that she's going to be on this film, and she is actually calling the script for this incredible. Now, what's interesting about this, and maybe the most exciting bit of news, is that they are bringing back the original writer of the original Jurassic Park movie, which is David Koepp. And that actually is pretty freaking cool. And so she's obviously read it, and she said the script, and she is saying that I'm an enormous Jurassic Park fan. It's one of the first films I remember seeing in the theater. I remember seeing it so vividly. It was like life-changing. It was mind-blowing. I cannot express how excited I am, Johansson said before teasing the next installment. The script is so incredible. David Koepp wrote it. He returned after like 30 years to write the script. He's so passionate about it, which is awesome. So it sounds like this could be a bit of a return to form for the series, and this could be pretty neat that he's, coming out of nowhere and rewriting the script. And Scarlett Johansson, I think, is a fun person to put back in it. I think she's a solid actress. She's always just seems like a stand-up gal. I really like her, everything she's done for the most part. And she doesn't seem to be one of these people that is just obsessed with politics or obsessed with just being like this mouthpiece for the industry. She's just a chill person who does movies and then goes home at the end of the day and hangs out with her family. So I'm all for their casting her. And I hope that this movie is good. I mean, this franchise is getting a little long in the tooth, but if it stays good, then sure, I guess I'll watch it either way because it's Jurassic Park and I'm going to watch it. So that's kind of where I am with the sequel thing, where it's like, yeah, Hollywood doesn't do anything but sequels. And I regularly do want sequels to certain things, but also we want some new ideas. We want creativity. And more than anything, we just want the industry to get their crap together because things have been sucking really freaking hard lately. So let's just hope that maybe at least bringing some of these industry vets is maybe a return to form. But also we've seen that a lot of the time, like with the most recent season of Doctor Who, when these guys kind of go off and do other things and then come back, it's actually way worse. So we're not guaranteed success here, but I'm always the one to look at the bright side, and I hope that it is good. And I'll watch it for sure. I'm not even going to lie about that. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was the box office, just to kind of give you guys an update because it's Monday. So with the box office, last weekend, Inside Out 2, or well, 2 weekends ago, technically, Inside Out 2 took over the world and made a ton of money. And it is continuing to make a lot of money. And I pulled up Geeks and Gamers right here, Odin's article. I give it a shout out every week. OMB Reviews writes these, and I love the write-up that he does every week, and it really just breaks everything down and lets you know kind of what's happening from week to week. Now, what it says is that the movie dropped 35%, which actually isn't technically that bad for a second weekend. Granted, it didn't have a ton of competition, but that's fine. And it is really looking like it might hit a world, global total of possibly hitting that $1 billion mark, which would be wild, which is a good sign for the box office. And whether or not we want it to be a good thing for Disney or not, because a lot of people are kind of rooting for their failure right now, we do want to speak on their successes. And it sounds like this one is a movie that people are actually liking, which is why I think it's doing well and continuing to progress, is that it is having a good word of mouth, and that, people like me who might be scared to take their families to see Disney movies nowadays, they are comfortable taking them to this. So it's like the word of mouth is good, and there are platforms like Criticlist and other sites where it's the reviews are good, and you don't have to listen to the critics on it. And so there's some trust here, and people are showing up, which is good. And they might have a repeat thing with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out very soon. And I'm pretty excited for that as well. I hope it's good. I don't want it to fail. I want to see Marvel bounce back. But the question is this kind of the dying, gasping breaths of this company, or are they getting their crap together? We'll see. Chances are they're not. There's been some pretty negative news this past week coming out about them, and I don't know if it'll cause them to course correct, but most of these companies don't tend to. But who knows? We'll see. Box office is doing well, at least, and people are showing up to the movies again. We did review on Critical's Cast Unhinged, the Bike Riders. We all actually liked it quite a bit to a varying degree, but, it sounds like that's doing fairly well. Technically, I mean, it's not doing gangbusters. It only made 10 million. But the thing is, this is an indie film. It's pretty niche, and hopefully word of mouth will help it a little bit, and then it'll get some good home sales. And at the very least, maybe they'll make their money back. And I think this movie's worth seeing, even seeing in the theaters. It's just, you got to know what you're getting into and know that it's not exactly what they marketed. It's something a little different, feels more like a documentary or a biopic, but that's fine. I had a good time with it. And, Bad Boys Ride or Die, also, they dropped 44%, but it's still, people are showing up for it as well. So, hey, it's at least making money here in the box office. And so I can't complain, because Hollywood doing semi-okay is good for us, because it means that we can still talk about the new movies and things that are coming out. So as always, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, do all that fun stuff for us, and make sure to go, most importantly, to criticalist.com, and just come back tomorrow. I do the news 4 times a week and keep you up to breast on a lot of the things that nobody else is talking about. So if you want to get that information, easily and quickly without having to hunt it all down on the interwebs, then just pop over here every day and I'll give you a rundown on what's happening. So as always, guys, it's been real, and I will see you back here tomorrow.